Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Board of Education meeting. I think we're good. Okay. Welcome, everybody. This meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act and is open to the media and public. Notices were duly posted and the meeting was advertised in the Courier News and Captain effective March 1st, 2026. All new legal notices and board meeting dates shall only be posted on the district website in conformity with state code. Formal action may be taken. Can we get a roll call vote?
Mrs. Cassidy.
Here.
Mrs. Fiore.
Here.
Mr. Lopes.
Here.
Mrs. Menser.
Here.
Mr. Fierros.
Here.
Mrs. Rad.
Here.
Mrs. Ryan.
Here.
Mrs. DePinto.
Here.
Mr. Rizzo.
Please stand for the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, now I'd like to welcome Mr. Daly, Ira, Ishan, and Jimmy for our student representative to the board report.
All right, good evening, everyone. We're really grateful to be able to come speak for a second time. I'll make a couple quick comments on my end just before I introduce our Board of Ed reps again. But Dr. Hart and I were talking, spoke with the student reps as well, but January obviously is board recognition month, and we wanted to make sure that from our standpoint, selfishly as civics teachers too, I'm very thankful for the involvement that all of you played in the role for our class, and some of you in capacities through interview, attending Project Citizen forums. Some of you are even coming next week in our class. So I'm thankful for being able to have you guys in as much as possible, and thankful that you are as accessible as you are for our class. Mr. Wasserman, are you able to pull up the presentation?
I'll get it to you right now.
Thanks, appreciate it. If you're as we're doing that, our first time that we were here in November, we sort of piloted the idea of getting student reps on the board, and Ira, Dumi, and Ishan were looking at it from the standpoint of what can we do to make sure that you guys are knowledgeable of what's going on in our school. We were able to make the first report mostly on fall sports, and then also a window into what was going on in the civics class. This time through, we tried to expand it to the middle school as a whole. So the involvement that went into this planning was making sure that we got in contact with various teachers around the school. The team leaders across the entire school were awesome at RMS in compiling all this information for us. And we have a short presentation as a window into what's going on at RMS. And if you have questions, please let us know. So first up will be Ishan.
Sometimes it takes a minute, Sean.
Go to the next one.
So in 6th grade, the Nature and Garden Club is like working on transforming the courtyard. So, and for English and language arts, they're like working on the argument essays for current controversial issues. For social studies, they're on their Egypt, ancient Egypt unit, and for science, they're on their famous Rube Goldberg experience project.
So in 7th grade, preparations are underway for the end of year trip to Topgolf. With math, courses are working on simplifying and manipulating algebraic expressions. Science classes are learning about traits and reproduction. And then in social studies, students are writing a DBQ essay on Alexander the Great. ELA students are finishing their feature articles and reading narrative nonfiction.
In civics and English language arts classes submitted their letters to the editor for the chronicle for the new Viking Voices section. In Algebra 1 classes are graphing linear equations and working on linear functions as well. In Algebra 2, students are solving problems with rational exponents, complex radicals, and radical functions. Science students have taken the role of evolutionary biologists. And in Spanish classes, students are learning about clothing and stores and various like Spanish culture, and as well as numbers into the trillions. The Triad Music Honor Society did a performance at Miota Senior Residence.
Chorus classes attended a festival at 100 Central with sending districts, and band and orchestra will be hosted by Hollenbrook students.
The Media Center continues to host Maker Mondays, and students are gearing up to defend the Hunterdon County title this year in this year's Battle of the Books.
So again, the work that we put in for this definitely wasn't possible without coordinating with a lot of the team leaders in the 8th grade, 7th grade, 6th grade, the Encore classes as well. We also had a bunch of select teachers that reached out to me in email. So I'm very grateful for their participation in that. Going forward, if you remember back to November, we were trying to piece together, do we want to try to expand this outside of the middle school so you guys can get a window into some of the other schools as well. And we're definitely open to working in that. If we have Jimmy, Ira, and Ishan working as like representatives for each of the other schools that are not at RMS. So thank you for your time, and thank you for letting us participate in this. Thank you.
Any comments from board members?
I had a question for Mr. Daly. For the Viking Voices for the Tap Into, was that something that we approached them? We just was curious about that. It's a fantastic opportunity for the students. And is it language arts pieces that they're sharing, or how does that work?
Yeah, so it was a project, language arts in conjunction with civics classes. Mrs. Zimmerman, Ms. O'Connor, Mrs. Lovering, and I had discussions too, and trying to plan out like what exactly was this going to look like. And we were able to make it fit into one of the language arts classes in civics. The students were able to pick topics similar to like a smaller version of what the Project Citizen Forum looks like. And they were able to do research, contact relevant stakeholders, and then we submitted them to the Chronicle, and they ended up picking like the top 10 articles that they were most impressed with. So the link was in there. They're being published now. We have about, I think, 5 or 6 of the kids who have been posted already, and you guys can check them out because we're really proud of the work that they were able to do in both language arts and civics classes. So, thanks.
Can you share that with the board? So we can,
The link?
Yeah.
Sure,
that'd be great.
absolutely, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Any other comments? Okay. Ira, Ishan, Jimmy, Mr. Daly, thank you very much for coming today and your presentation. Our next item is the superintendent's report. Dr. Hart.
Welcome, everyone. Ira, Ishan, and Jimmy, thank you very much again for being here tonight, and to everyone. We really appreciate you being here on what I think hits the record as the coldest evening of the year. So leave it to us to schedule a board meeting on the coldest night of the year. We should talk to the superintendent about that on tomorrow morning. We are in the throes of budget planning for the 26 school entering our 26-27 school year. And with that, what I'd like to do during our January board meeting is take a moment and take stock of where we are when it comes to enrollment, what the landscape looks like with our housing developments coming in here to Readington, and then give a little preview of some of the results from the annual audit report, which I placed in this presentation, and we can take questions as we go. So the first thing I'll mention is you can see that this presentation in some version or another dates back to 2021. There are other presentations that go back even further. I find when you're engaging in a process of redistricting certain homes in the area, more communication is better, and the longer the better. So I think that you might even find a presentation back to 2019 related to our housing developments and some of the redistricting efforts that we've undertaken over the past 5+ years. So, does it work with you? It does, but I can't do it from over here. I need longer arms. Current enrollment trends and this is our see, now we woke up, right? So here's our enrollment history grades K through 8. So you'll see that blue line represents our K through 8 enrollment back from 2015-16 all the way up to the current 25-26 enrollment. So you'll notice that in the 18-19, 19-20 school year is when we started to see our final drop below 1,500 students. 2021 was where we hit 1,400, and we've been holding pretty steady around 1,400 students since 2021, with some peaks and valleys here or there. What we're watching very closely is what happened from last year to this year, which is an increase in enrollment, largely due to us graduating an 8th grade class that was a little smaller and bringing in a kindergarten class that was larger than expected. So it seems as if enrollment is flipping a little bit. We're bringing in slightly larger classes than we're graduating. But by and large, this is stable. Our enrollment is pretty steady, grades K through 8, and hopefully we continue this trend. We might even see a little bit more of an increase next year. I attribute this to a couple of things. First and foremost, our fantastic reputation for education in Hunterdon County and region. Second, we are the only Hunterdon County district that offers the universal pre-K program for virtually all students who are age 3 and 4. I think this, and some Somerset County districts don't offer even full-day kindergarten. I think that this is a huge draw for families, young families moving into Readington. And I think we're also just seeing just a natural movement of homes now just due to market circumstances as well. So I think we're going to see some enrollment increase. Here's Three Bridges and White House grades K through 3. These are our October snapshot reports. So you'll see what happened at White House and Three Bridges. We started to see this back in 19 and 20. Enrollment on the Three Bridges side of town went down. Enrollment at the White House side of town went up. And we hadn't even built yet any of the housing developments that I'll talk about in this presentation. So this disparity, we knew we needed to correct, especially knowing that we had some housing developments coming in. So you'll see in the year 2021 was the first year of our redistricting model. And since then, we've started to close that gap and keep consistent enrollment between White House and Three Bridges. So here's our school configuration with December 2025 enrollment reports. Three Bridges and White House both pre-K through 3, with about 313 students at Three Bridges and 335 at White House. Includes preschool as well. 4 through 8, Hollenbrook School at 320 and Readington Middle School at 462. Readington Middle School is now seeing some enrollment decreases over the past couple of years because those larger classes that were moving through our grades are now graduating from RMS and they're bringing in grades that are a little bit smaller. So, when I got here 8 years ago, RMS was closer to 600. So we've seen about 100 students decrease in RMS, but this is stable. We're seeing anywhere between this 462 to almost 500 on an annual basis. Our current preschool providers, this is where our preschoolers currently are, 3 in-district classrooms and then 4 classrooms at White House Prep. 4 at Berry Patch, 2 at Stanton Learning Center, and 3 at Global Pioneer. So the housing developments. I just want to walk you through housing developments that have been completed, and then 2 that we anticipate, just an update here. So this is the Willows at White House Station, Nelson Street development. So some key features of this development are it's 72 total units, but notice that there's 42 bed units and 18 3-bed units, and this is 100% affordable. Our student population coming from this particular development this year, pre-K through 3, is a total of 33 students. Just make note of the numbers: 33 students pre-K through 8, 29 K through 8, and then 16 on White House only, because remember we have 2 K through 3, pre-K through 3 schools. Now this is the Ridge at Reddington for a total of 254 units, right? You might suspect, and our formulas told us to expect more students coming from the Ridge, just based on its size. But if you notice, this development has fewer 3-bedroom units than the Willows at White House Station. Additionally, it's 25% affordable and 75% market rate. So you'll see we have about the same amount of students in district that are from this development: 37 students, slightly more than the Willows, 30 K through 8, and 21 K through 3 at White House School. I attribute this to 2 things: 1, that this is 75% market rate, and 2, that we see a fewer 3-bedroom units. It's really the 2 and 3-bedroom units that you have to pay close attention to when looking at housing developments and potential school enrollment. This is the Diaz property off of Route 202 and 3 Bridges. Construction is definitely underway. Building is happening. Units are up. Certainly no finishes or siding or anything like that, but you can see that this is an active construction zone that is estimated to be completed probably sometime late 26, so maybe November, December of next year to early 27. This is 80 total units, 100% affordable. It looks almost mirror image to the Willows at White House Station. Because of that, we have a decent estimate of how many students will receive from this housing development. And notice the 23-bedroom units. So next year, we could expect anywhere from 20 to 30 students district-wide, and half of them will be at 3 Bridges, maybe between 10 and 15. We may not see enrollment until January or February next year, but we know to anticipate that with this property. So this is next to be built. And here's Camelot, off of Mullen Road. Again, looks a lot like the Ridge. It's a kind of a mirror image, but it's 192 units, only 10 3-bedrooms, but still the same formula of 25% affordable and then 75% market rate. So this development will look much more like the Ridge on Route 22. So we knew, right, 6 years ago that we needed to plan for this. So we started to plan for our enrollment impact. So the first thing we did was we used the baseline, the Rutgers formula, to estimate how many students we may get from these housing developments. It wasn't exactly reliable, probably for a couple of reasons. It's a study from back in 2018. Number 1. Number 2, it was based off of K-12 districts, and we're a K-8 district. So it's difficult to give us the exact numbers of how many students we may see enrollment based off of new housing developments. But it's not needed anymore. We have 2 housing developments that are complete, students are enrolled, we can use those as our new baseline, which is what we're planning for. So this is what it looks like. Here's our actual enrollment at the Willows and the Ridge, and then what we project for Camelot and the Diaz property. Now notice Camelot, we're not expecting enrollment next year, maybe not the following school year, but Diaz property, we should be looking at planning for, this 29 about students in the next year to 18 months. Plus, notice that those about 14 students will be at 3 Bridges, grades K through 3. So our planning included identifying and knowing that 3 of the 4 housing developments are on White House side of town. Only 1 is at the 3 Bridges side of town, and we knew that some kind of redistricting was going to happen. We needed to look at student population to create some parity between the 2 buildings. We needed to make sure that we maintain enrollment. We want to have similar services, similar programs, similar student bodies in both of our K-3 buildings. Keep going. So our plan was this. I'll be pretty quick through this. We've all seen this before. This has been 5 years in the making. We looked at several options to redistricting, everything from, redrawing lines, moving students immediately, to reconfiguring the entire district, grades K-5 to 3 elementary schools. And eventually we selected the slow movement of students who enrolled in a certain area of town from White House to Three Bridges. So it was the gradual movement. As students enrolled, if they were new to our town, and incoming kindergartners in a certain region of Reddington Township, those students attended Three Bridges School instead of White House School. So we had a 5-year phase-in approach. It took forever. Transportation will tell you that transporting a neighborhood of students to 2 different elementary schools was a challenge, but we have come out in the 25-26 school year, have successfully implemented this phase-in approach. And the best thing is we did not disrupt students in their current educational setting. If you were a White House student and you started first grade or kindergarten at White House School, you stayed there until you graduated 3rd grade. If you had a sibling there, you were able to attend school with your sibling. We really didn't disrupt students, which was our goal. And we're in our final year. So this was the last cohort of incoming kindergarten students from that redistricting area of town that now that entire neighborhood, grades K through 3, are all in one school. So that whole redistricted neighborhood, K through 3, are at Three Bridges School. So our phase-in approach worked. Here were the street names that were impacted. Keep going down. This was my drawings on a map. But this was, thanks to our tech department, a really nice digital way to see how our map now looks. The blue side of town is Three Bridges, and the red side of town is the White House side of town. This is an interactive map that families and parents can use. They can click on that little magnifying glass icon, look up their street, and it'll highlight that property either in the blue or the red. And that's on our website, and it's on our registration page as well. So redistricting, the outcomes. So how did it work? Good. Keep going. So we're in our final phase, right? This is our last year. But again, keep going. Overall, in the past, we estimated 60 students 5 years ago that would be redistricted from the White House side of town to the Three Bridges side of town. It's 57, which is a pretty good estimate that we came up with. The Three Bridges current enrollment was 303 and then 315. This is K through 3. We did not include preschool because preschool has changed the enrollment a little bit just based off of our expansion of the preschool program. But to have the 2 elementary schools to be within 13 students of one another, knowing that if you looked at that graph from 8-10 slides ago, that we started to see a little bit of a divide between the student population. Just imagine if you subtracted 57 students from Three Bridges and added them to White House, how unbalanced our district might look. But planning for next year in Three Bridges. So 26-27, we may see more students moving into the Three Bridges side of town because of the new development. So when the personnel committee meets, we're going to be looking at some enrollment numbers and some staffing projections. I would recommend we need a little room to grow at Three Bridges potentially because we'll see some move-ins perhaps mid-year next year. We may need to add additional personnel. We may need to reallocate staff, but that's becoming increasingly difficult because of some of our budget constraints. Go ahead, David, keep going. So historically, White House and Three Bridges, there's some room to grow if enrollment does increase from these housing developments. We've seen larger numbers. I'll just caution the board and the public and let you know that back in 2012 and 2013, we did not have full-day kindergarten, full-day preschool, and self-contained special education classes. So while there's room to grow, we are slowly starting to meet capacity at White House and Three Bridges as well. We have preschool, we have full-day kindergarten, we have special ed programs as well. We have plenty of room, grades 4 through 8. Again, Hollenbrook School does have some self-contained special education classes. There's no preschool here, but there is room at Hollenbrook and RMS as well. So as enrollment increases, I guess what I'm suggesting here with these slides, no massive changes need to be made to our facilities. We may need to do some smaller projects to make more room, offices, things like that, but we have some capacity for some enrollment increase. But some budget snapshots. So enrollment is increasing, and with enrollment increases, it means we need to look at staffing. But we have some budget constraints. And you'll see that one of the budget constraints that we're going to be wrestling with over this budget season is employee benefit employee benefit premiums going up. So employee benefits have steadily increased. And you can see from this pie chart from our audit, the green, and I want to say purple, make up employee salaries and benefits. We are a people business. 80% of our budget, if you look at it, goes toward individual salaries and benefits. So while we look at the demands and the needs of our town and populations and housing developments, we also have to look at staffing and responding to those needs. What's making it increasingly difficult is the unpredictability of health benefit increases and some of the very large number of health benefit increase premiums that we're looking at for next school year. So it's going to be a challenge, it's presenting a challenge, but we started working on it today and we're almost there. Right, Jason? Just say yes. In addition, we've done some major capital projects over the past 8 to 10 years. New roofs, new boilers, new main office with roof and HVAC and boilers over at middle school, upgrading our facilities. We've spent a lot of capital funding that did not impact the taxpayer at all to really do some massive improvements to our buildings. With that, we've drawn down our capital reserves a little bit. It's been a little bit more difficult to put reserves back into those accounts just because of the constraints that we have on our budget. So they've been diminished over the years, but the good news is we just passed a $38 million referendum. So we really don't need to tap into capital reserves. Our goal, when Jason and I talk, our goal is to use the next couple of budget cycles to build this back up. So when we're through our referendum projects, we've got plenty left in capital and maintenance reserve to do any ancillary projects that come up after the referendum is complete. So we planned for this purposefully, and we've done a lot of projects, and the referendum is going to help tremendously to do the next wave of capital projects over the next, I would say, 3 summers. So concluding thoughts, we can make much better predictions of enrollment based off of the housing developments that we currently have in the district. Redistricting has balanced enrollment grades K through 3. Preschool has assisted us in projecting future kindergarten. We know exactly how many 4-year-olds are on our preschool program right now that are aging up into kindergarten. We can predict that today, and that should hopefully help us making projections for kindergarten for next year and in the future. There is some room for enrollment increases. No massive changes to our buildings, some minor changes, but we can absorb it. Budget constraints are going to be our primary driver of decision making when it comes to looking at our enrollment, as well as looking at the budget for this upcoming school year. Questions from members of the board?
So you mentioned that first line graph on enrollment is a little misleading because it's counting whole bodies in K to 8 only. And I'm just curious if we could look at it a little differently by including, the pre-K enrollment, maybe like a stacked bar graph where we're looking at the pre-K enrollment either inside or outside in external buildings versus TBS and White House. And I hate to even say it, but counting those early kindergartners as half a student. I'm just wondering if it might help us kind of baseline and normalize so that we can view our capacity compared to the past years a little bit more accurately.
Yes, we can. Our pre-K enrollment is in your enrollment report if you want to see what that looks like right now today. When Jason and I do the budget presentation for March, we'll make sure that we have both types of enrollments shown for the board with what our growth has looked like K through 8, and then what pre-K has done to our enrollment. Because if we went back to that graph, if we counted pre-K in there, our enrollment is back up. It looks like a smiley face. Our enrollment is back up to almost the 1,700 line mark, 1,600, I would say. Thank you. As soon as I get back up. If I write it on this, I won't. Any other questions about enrollment, budget planning? The audit, I took some snapshots from the audit. The audit results are in your agenda. So we can talk about that in more detail. Jason can give you more of an overview about the audit results as well. But they are also, some of those snapshots are in the presentation. Let me go take a seat. Were there any questions from the board about the audit, or Mr. Rizzo, was there anything that we should go over about the audit results that you could think of from finance?
We have some comments in the minutes that address the audit results,
Okay.
specifically that there were no findings, which is important.
Yeah. I guess I would recommend some of those snapshots from the audit I incorporated into the presentation, but maybe during finance, Michelle, when the report goes out, if there's any additional questions, we can discuss it then.
Sure.
Okay. The last agenda item is Board Recognition Month. You should all have a nice little certificate. So we don't give them to just the kids, we give them to board members too. Thank you, Mr. Daly, for making mention of Board Recognition Month. There's also a resolution on the agenda. Unfortunately, there's no checks or bonuses in your little folders. We can't do that, but we can say thank you, and we can put a resolution on the agenda and appreciate the work that all of you do. This is one of the harder working volunteer jobs that you probably have in time consuming. So thank you for your time, and happy Board Recognition Day. And if there's no questions, that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you, Dr. Hart. Okay, next item is the public forum, limited to items not on the agenda. We have a lot of people here today, so we can just kind of judge if people are going to be speaking, if we have to limit the time to 3 minutes or not. Is there, by show of hands, is people that are planning to speak at this session? We have 1, 2, okay. All right, so it's not going to take up all 30 minutes, so we won't, be a hard stop in 3 minutes. But when we get close, we'll let you know if it goes over. That being said, whoever wants to speak, please come up, state your name and town, and it's all yours. On the agenda?
Yeah.
So, no? For the second meet? Okay. All right, anyone else? No one online? No? Okay, we'll close that session out. Okay, we've received 2 correspondences. They are with the board secretary on file. Now we're going to move to board action items and start with the approval of administrative reports. We have one item, item 101. Can I get a motion and then a second on that?
I'll move, Ellen.
Any discussion?
Mrs. Cassidy,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Lopes,
Yes.
Mrs. Menser,
Yes.
Mr. Pieros,
Yes.
Mrs. Rad,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan,
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, next item is approval of our minutes. Item 201, can I get a motion and a second?
I'll move, Ellen.
Second, Michelle.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Rowe.
Mrs. Cassidy,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Lopes,
Yes.
Mrs. Menser,
Yes.
Mr. Pieros,
Yes.
Mrs. Rad,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan,
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes.
Passes.
All right, our next is finance and facilities. We have 6 items, and we will have a committee report as well, as Michelle just mentioned a few minutes ago. Can I get a motion to move items 301 and 306 in a second?
Motion. Second.
Second, okay, Michelle?
Sure. So the Finance Committee met on Wednesdays, December 17th. The first topic were the audit results. The committee reviewed the audit results for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025, which were presented by Jonathan Weiss and Julia Sinkfield. Reserve balances are as follows. Capital, $1,054,031. Maintenance, $57,293. And emergency, $1,098. Budgeted surplus is $785,000. Revenue increased by $3.1 million versus the prior year. The largest increase in revenue was special revenue, primarily attributed to preschool expansion aid. Operating expenses increased by $7 million versus the prior year, primarily driven by the preschool expansion grant and capital outlay related to RMS main office renovations, as well as ongoing roof and HVAC projects. There were no audit findings. Referendum. The committee discussed the prioritized projects for summer 2026, as well as the referendum website in order to communicate transparently with the community about the status of projects. The website includes a public tracking document and photos of planned and ongoing work. The architectural total fee and terms and conditions were also reviewed. The committee agreed the administration should assess which projects warrant an architect and which can be undertaken directly by facilities, such as whiteboard installation, in order to be both effective and efficient with taxpayer funds. Next steps related to the referendum include a bond resolution in March, a sale in June, and proceeds in July. Solar update. The business administrator gave a brief update on the status of solar, which may be undertaken by Easy Energy, a construction vendor, and Solect Energy, a finance company. Timelines include state approval in February, ordering product in March, breaking ground in June, with work beginning by July 4th. The district awaits confirmation from Easy Energy that submission to the state has occurred. Bank interest update. The business administrator provided the committee an update on a prior request to renegotiate an improved interest rate with Citizens Bank. The business administrator successfully increased the agreed rate to 3% with market rate adjustments. The committee was reminded that an NJ ARM account was board approved to utilize for the referendum, an excess surplus, which is high 3% currently with market rate adjustments. Bus route efficiency topic was tabled to a future meeting. Strategic planning presentation. Judith Wilson, a former superintendent and consultant, joined the committee to present her approach to support district strategic planning. The committee engaged in Q&A with Ms. Wilson. Next steps are for the administration to prepare a side-by-side comparison of vendors, which has been completed already, to support board selection of a future partner for district strategic planning. The bill list was available for the committee to review, and the next planned meeting is Wednesday, January 28th.
Thank you. Any discussion items? Okay.
Mrs. Cassidy,
Yes.
Ms. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Lopes,
Yes.
Mrs. Menser,
Yes.
Mr. Pieros,
Yes.
Mrs. Rad,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan,
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes.
Passes.
Our next item is for our Education and Technology Committee. And we have 10 items to move, 401 through 410. Can I have someone do a motion and then a second on that?
I'll move Ellen.
Okay, we do have the report. I don't know, is Paolo or Michelle going to read the report from December 18th? Okay. Yeah, okay.
Just-
Okay, the meeting minutes for December 18th. Congratulations to Dr. Shinola. He got his doctorate. One specialized program projections for 26-27 in preparation for the 26-27 budget. Dr. Shinola reported that he and Mrs. Burns are currently evaluating the specialized programs and may take recommendations based on their findings. Establish ESY program for summer 2026 at Hollenbrook. The summer 26 ESY program will be in one location at Hollenbrook School from July 6th to August 6th. SEL data K through 5 students, Dr. Tumullo gave a report on newly collected data around the CASTLE core competencies, which comprise the SEL curriculum. Through teacher assessments, the district was able to identify and offer services to students who need additional support in the SEL foundations. This information will be shared with parents during conferences, and ideally, these foundations will align with report card categories. Based on results, the K through 5 students overall have strong self-awareness, very few foundational needs, and consistent upward growth. Teachers will assess this annually. Number 3, HCRHS PSAT data. Ms. Pouch and Dr. Hart shared PSAT data from Hunter and Central on Reddington students who are currently in the 9th grade and were 8th graders last year. Math, 65% of Reddington students are meeting, exceeding expectations. 29% are approaching expectations, 6% are not yet approaching. Language arts, 67% of Reddington students are meeting, exceeding expectations. 24% are approaching expectations. 9% are not approaching yet. This was great data point to see as we look closer to the NJSLA results for 8th graders in previous meetings and had concerns about the performance in the spring. For Temple University study, Dr. Hart introduced the Temple University study that Reddington was asked to participate in. The study is on spatial reasoning. It is voluntary. It is for middle school students, and if their parents want their child to participate, it will be administered during non-instructional time. 5, Judith Wilson strategic planning. Judith's philosophy is to hear from as many as possible in pre-K through 8 families. Different strands of online surveys. Grades pre-K through 5, grades 6 through 8, faculty, staff, parents, and community. Topics are similar to surveys. Balance of play and academics, use of technology, feeling of belonging. Other data collected are one-on-one interviews with board members and administrators, key players. About 6 or more forums if needed, morning and evening options. Group of about 30 key thinkers will be asked to volunteer for 2 days to carve out goals. Co-chairs would then be formed for each goal. Facility and faculty and administrators appeared. Agenda items for the Temple study, special education programs likely a future meeting, establish ESY for summer 2026. Next meeting happened already January 16th, 8:30 a.m.
Thank you, Colin. Any comments or discussion?
I just had a comment for 4.10 to hire Judith Wilson as our strategic planning consultant. I just am very excited about that. So I was happy to see that we're going to be moving in that direction, and I'm excited for the district and what that's going to look like for us.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Maybe just one comment. I wanted to thank the committee for the follow-up on the test scores of the 8th graders and that forward look. I think that was important, and it certainly gave me confidence, so I appreciate that.
Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Bowman?
Mrs. Cassidy,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Lopes,
Yes.
Mrs. Mentor,
Yes.
Mr. Pieros,
Yes.
Mrs. Rad,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan,
Yes.
Mrs. Pinto,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes. Thank you. Our next item is personnel. We have 5 items, 501 to 509. We do not have a committee report this month to read out. Can I have a motion and then a second for 501 to 509?
Motion.
You got it? Second? You got it? Any discussion items? Okay, Mr. Bowman?
Mrs. Cassidy,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Lopes,
Yes.
Mrs. Mentor,
Yes.
Mr. Pieros,
Yes.
Mrs. Rad,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan?
Yes.
Mrs. Pinto?
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo?
Yes.
Passes.
The next is a Communication and Policy Committee. We have 4 items, 601, and we have 2 committee reports to read out, so that will be a little longer. That being said, can I get a motion and a second for the 4 items?
I'll move. Justina, second.
Our first minutes are from December 22nd, 2025. For policy updates, the 2000 series, Dr. Hart brought the following policy subcommittee to review any changes that were made based on the committee's previous recommendations and after consultation with staff and Strauss Esme. The committee also discussed the best way to indicate on the policy in the manual when a policy has not been fully revised but has had minor edits without changing any substantive parts of the policy. The edited date listed at the top of the policy will reflect minor edits, for example, updating the name of testing mentioned in the policy. The revised date at the bottom of the policy will change when substantive changes are warranted. This will be included in the tracking document for future boards and may be added to bylaw 0131. Policy 2412, home instruction due to health condition. As per Strauss Esme, this policy is the most updated version. A minor correction to update core curriculum standards, reference to NJSLS will be made, and then this policy will be marked as reviewed. Policy 2415.06, unsafe school choice option. This is the most updated policy according to Strauss Esme. It includes federal requirements of Title 8 of ESSA. No changes recommended. This policy will be marked as reviewed. The policy 2415.2, no child left behind. This is the most updated version of this policy. However, the title must be updated from No Child Left Behind to Every Student Succeeds Act. This policy will be marked as reviewed. Policy 2415.3, educational stability for children in foster care. This is the most updated policy. The committee discussed current language in the policy regarding children remaining in the district once they exit foster care. The current language states a foster care child who has been placed in this district and exits foster care during the school year will not be permitted to continue in this school district for the remainder of the school year. The parents, legal guardians of the child, may petition the board to allow the child to conclude the school year in accordance with terms and conditions outlined in policy 5118 and 5111. Reference to policy 5118 should be replaced with 5116 since policy 5118 no longer exists. Policy 2461, special education receiving schools. This policy is only mandated for approved private schools for students with disabilities, ESCs, and jointures. Since we are not a send receive district and do not need this policy, we will abolish it. Policy 2460.8, free and appropriate public education. This is a regulation only and was in the policy section in error. It has been re-indexed appropriately as a regulation. Policy 2468, independent educational evaluations. This policy has been reviewed by administration who recommends no changes be made to it as it is a solid policy. Policy 2481, home care instruction for general education students for reasons other than a health condition. This is also the most updated policy from Strauss Esme and does not require any revisions. However, minor corrections to update core curriculum standards to NJSLS in the policy, and then it will be marked as reviewed. Bylaw 0143, board member election and appointment. Legal update. Dr. Hart provided the board with a recommendation from legal counsel regarding this bylaw. We updated our bylaw to include language that indicates that the board will not nominate or vote on candidates until the public has been given a full and fair opportunity to speak after returning from executive session. Dr. Hart will review with the attorney. If they approve it, we'll move forward. And if it isn't approved, it will return to the committee. Board meeting follow-up. Policy 2330 for homework. This policy did not pass at our last board meeting. The committee considered the full board's positions on whether or not the reading log should be a part of the policy or included in the regulation instead. The committee decided to leave the policy as is and mention the reading log in regulation. Freedom to read options, freedom to read considerations. Dr. Hart met with our librarians to get their input regarding adding a statement to the freedom to read policy that would guide the librarians regarding sexually explicit content at the curation point. The librarians expressed concerns about whether having language preventing obscene material will contradict the very intent of the Freedom to Read Act and could also cause confusion when selecting material without having terms such as sexually explicit defined in a clear way. They expressed concerns that this language could create an issue for current books in the library and may cause a need for many books to go through the challenge process. The librarians shared that their current curation process includes referring to the school library journal, webinars, professional development and conferences, Goodreads, doing their own preview, and student input recommendations.
The committee discussed the following options for the policy. Option 1, leave the policy as is and adopt it. Implications, no changes to the policy. Option 2, add the language from the criminal law New Jersey revised statute 2C 34-3, preventing library material that meets this definition. The implications will require the policy regulation be changed to have this statute and expectations clear to staff. Option 3, add language that prevents sexually explicit obscene material to be placed in the library. The implications will require the policy regulation to be changed to have this language and expectations clear to staff. Option 4, create a flow chart of expectations or a decision tree of how books are selected for the library. Implications may require the policy regulation be changed to reflect this flow chart, but does not require a change. Option 5, create in policy that the Board of Education approves all books in the library. Implications may require the policy regulation be changed to reflect this approval, could slow the process of ordering. And other options to be discussed, there can be gradations of any of the options above. A board member shared a quote from Governor Murphy where he explains that boards can restrict access to developmentally inappropriate material for certain age groups. She also shared that the bill clearly defines censorship and that restricting access to books that are developmentally inappropriate for certain students is not censorship. A suggestion for possible language to include in the policy was made. The Readington Board of Education will provide proper library review tools to ensure books are developmentally appropriate for our K-8 students. Materials with significant education value that might also touch upon sensitive topics must prioritize the educational, artistic, or scientific merit over any sexual content. All materials selected must be consistent with the curriculum and be developmentally appropriate for the specific grade levels they are intended to serve. Other board members shared that they have concerns with adding language to the policy because different parents have different views on what is appropriate or what they might prioritize for their child. A board member inquired as to what other surrounding districts have done with this policy, and it was mentioned that one has passed this policy on first read after making a minor change to the section about individuals with a vested interest. The committee decided to craft language and have it reviewed by the attorney and library staff, and then we will decide if it should be placed in policy or in regulation. Dr. Hart took the suggestion for language and will use that as a starting point. The library software Mac and Via has an integration with Common Sense Media to provide age-based rating and content details such as violence and language. This could also be included in the proposed policy language. The committee will meet again to further discuss this policy and intends to move forward at that time. Fourth item that we discussed was the New Jersey Department of Education broadcast regarding Hamud. No real updates yet. This is tabled due to time constraints. And then the policy tracking document for review, the committee continued with its independent review of assigned manual sections and will be reviewed at our next meeting. I have another. Policy Communications Committee met on January 12th. First thing we discussed was the freedom to read policy and regulation. For policy 2535, library materials, Dr. Hart brought our proposed language from the previous meeting to the attorney for review and provided information based on their discussion. The proposed language is as follows. Paragraph 1 states, to that end, the Board of Education will provide the school library staff member with the tools and professional development to ensure materials are developmentally appropriate for the pre-K through 8 students served. Materials with significant educational value that may also touch upon sensitive topics must prioritize the educational, literary, artistic, and scientific merit over any adverse content. All materials selected shall be consistent with student interests, the district curriculum, and be developmentally appropriate for the grade level served. This language is intended to guide future selections. Removal of any material is guided by Regulation 2535. Paragraph 2, the tools and resources provided to the school's library staff members are, but not limited to, professional research and literature such as the School Library Journal, webinars, professional conferences, Common Sense Media, and Mac and Vision software. Paragraph 3 states when a library staff member identifies the purchase of a material that may contain sensitive content, that material may be sent to the administration for review. The material may also be presented to the EdTech Committee for board review. The attorney recommended we identify the items that describe the how versus what and consider placing the how in the regulation because regulations provide the how in terms of implementation. The board should consider that although the statute gives the board authority to collaborate with the library staff for material selection, some may interpret adding this language as managing the district or facilitating de facto censorship. The attorney also suggested a paragraph for us to consider instead of paragraph 3. If a library staff member identifies the purchase of material that may contain sensitive content prior to presenting the material to the superintendent or designee as per section C3 of policy 2535, the staff member shall present the material to a review panel consisting of the building principal, supervisor of humanities, and another librarian, known as the panel. The panel's review process may include presentation of the material to the Ed Tech Committee of the Board of Education for further review. The committee spent some time discussing which portion of the language should live in policy and which should live in regulation. One board member was concerned about the length of the statement and asked if we could streamline it. One member expressed concern that having a review panel and presentations to the Ed Tech Committee could be seen as censorship. A board member shared that according to the policy and also statements from Governor Murphy's press release, limiting or restricting access to any library material deemed developmentally inappropriate for certain students is not considered censorship. The committee also discussed a way to standardize the process for books that may be flagged as containing sensitive material or possibly age inappropriate. The committee agreed that the best way to move forward was to keep the process as is mentioned in paragraph 3 of the attorney's suggestion. The committee agreed that paragraph 1 will be included in policy, paragraph 2 will be removed, and the revised paragraph 3 will be included in the regulation. Regulation 2535, library materials. The committee reviewed the regulation and recommends the addition of the attorney's proposed language to be included. The scope of the regulation will need to be expanded to include a section C for the selection process for library materials that may contain sensitive content. Policy 2530, resource materials. The committee agreed that no further changes are needed to this policy and is ready for first read. Regulation 2530, resource materials revised. The committee agreed that no further changes are needed to this policy and is ready for first read. Policy 9130, public complaints. The committee agreed that no further changes are needed to this policy and it is ready for first read. Regulation 9130, public complaints. A committee member asked if it is in statute that the superintendent has to select the board member who will serve on the review committee for textbook complaints, or if the board would be able to make that selection as they are now in policy 2535 for the library book complaints. Dr. Hart will look into this and get back to us. The committee agreed to move forward with the current revisions and will consider revising again if changes to the review committee selections are allowed. We then discussed alert 236. The committee reviewed these policies and agreed to move them forward to first read. Bylaw 014 2.1 nepotism, policy 1220 employment of chief school administrator. The policy tracking document for review. Dr. Hart received the manual audit from Strauss Esme and will share it with committee so they can review it and cross-reference it with our tracking document. We will be reviewing it shortly and advise that Strauss can update policies for us or at fee. We will discuss this at our next committee meeting. And our next committee meeting is Monday, February 9th at 3:30.
Thank you, Aaron. I will open it up for any discussion from the board. Anyone like to raise anything? Okay. Pam, I saw your hand first.
Yeah, so, we got our fresh copy of our code of ethics for board members at the last meeting, but I feel like this topic on policy and regulation 2535 is particularly relevant to some of these. We have statement C, I will confine my board actions, policy making, planning, and appraisal, and will help to frame policies and plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them. And I know that we had gotten some input from the librarians and the media specialists in the district for the initial framing of the language. And I had asked you if we could follow up with them, and you said that they weren't thrilled or they don't have. I would personally really appreciate having at least one of the librarians come and talk to the committee about the implications of the policy and the regulation as written. I feel like I wanted to streamline the language a little bit so that we could have less direct language around what was included or not, and maybe even remove the section in the regulation about the board having involvement. I feel like we have not got to a point where a librarian has had to escalate a book, and I don't know that we should put it in policy before we've come across that situation or that help. I did bring a little show and tell today to share with everyone. Lost a book jacket. Sorry, how Mr. Daly's still here. Good. This was a book I read when I was 15. Everybody knows it from the movies, Jurassic Park. it's got violence, it doesn't have any sex, but it talks about, various scientific technologies that some people may not believe in or disagree with, but it changed the course of my life. I decided to study molecular biology because of this book. Like, it's fiction, it's fun. My company just set a Guinness Book of World Record for fastest sequencing of the human genome very recently. So it's actually mentioned in this book, my company. So it's thrilling for me to go back and reread it again. But I want to make sure that our students have access to even fictional material that can change their life, the way that this book changed mine. So I am just concerned that we may be making policy that is overreaching, and here's the other one. I'll carry out my responsibility not to administer the schools, but together with my fellow board members to see that they are well run. And I want to make sure that, I have not seen the qualifications of the Ed Tech Committee and their resumes and their qualifications to be able to make judgment, where I do support and protect school personnel in the proper performance of their duties. And we hire the librarians for their experience and their education. I appreciate the statement that we provide them tools and professional development to help make these decisions in the selection of materials. So as such, I don't feel like we're ready to move forward on 2535 for the policy for language. So that's my story.
No, Beth, you have?
Yeah, I did, so I emailed the chair and the president just so you had advance notice. I'm happy to see the 2535 policy for library materials moving forward. I know that this has been in discussions in committee for a while, so I'm happy to see it moving forward, and mostly with all of the language that our attorneys have proposed to us, so I think that's a fantastic thing. I take issue with the regulation. The policy itself is fine, but for the regulation in that paragraph 3, the idea that we say in our policy that we want to empower and give our librarians the tools to select age-appropriate books. But then in the regulation, we say, but if we don't think you can make the appropriate decision, or if they, for whatever reason, can't make a decision, they're supposed to come to board members. And I find that inappropriate. I feel that board members should stay in their role as policymakers. And I agree with Pam that I don't know what qualifications are. I mean, we heard in our last board meeting the qualifications of our librarian, at least at the middle school. These staff members went to college and have advanced degrees in library sciences, and I don't feel that our Board of Education should be the last decision maker on whether a book should be purchased for the library. So I do agree, or I will vote yes for the policy, but I'm going to be voting no for the regulation.
Thank you, Beth. Any other comments? I have a couple comments I'll make. I'll just let anyone else go before me. Thoughts? Okay. So one of the things I want to bring up is the language of the policy and the regulations. It's kind of important because that's kind of what we're changing and what it actually says. So I know Ellen read it, but I'm going to just reread portions of it and emphasize it. The one thing on the policy is, it's more, the statement is more of a mission statement, and it talks about developmentally appropriate, which is another part of the policy. So it really doesn't add much more from a change, is why I think Beth is willing to vote for it, because it doesn't really change too much, but just brings it to the point that where it says, provide tools and professional development to ensure materials are developmentally appropriate for the pre-K to 8 student serves. And then it goes a little bit more into the details. It's more not directional, it's more high-level mission statement that does fit in with the rest of the policy and the comments. I think the regulation is interesting in that, and I'm going to read the section that is in question. The following procedure shall be implemented according to the section of library materials that may contain sensitive content. If a library member identifies a person's material that may contain sensitive content prior to presenting the material to the superintendent, to the tenant or designee per section C3, the staff member shall present the material to a review panel consisting of the building principal, supervisor of humanities, and another librarian panel. The panel's review committee process may include presentation to materials at EdTech or the Board of Education for further review. The reason I bring it up is because the process, it says if a library staff member identifies the purchase. There's really like the EdTech committee and board is not involved in there. It starts with the librarian. It says if the member finds it. And if she does find sensitive material or he finds sensitive material, what happens? They present it to a panel. The panel is not just the board. The panel is the building principal, supervisor of humanities, and another librarian. So if the librarian first flags something that's sensitive, not sure, may or may not be, they're going to bring it to her colleagues and her supervisor or his supervisor. They will then review it. If the panel then thinks, maybe this needs to go further, it's then going to go to the superintendent. The superintendent's going to review it. Maybe he'll say, there is sensitive material, maybe not. Then it goes to the EdTech committee. So by the time it hits the Board of Education, the librarian has identified as potentially sensitive. A panel of her peers has identified as possibly sensitive. It's gone to the superintendent to say it's possibly sensitive material, and then it goes to the EdTech committee. So there is steps along the way before the board gets involved. So I just wanted to let you know that there is control. And then at this point, the EdTech committee may or may not take action. But everything starts with the administration, starts with the staff members, not with the Board of Education. So I just want to clarify how the process will work. So it's not the board looking at every book. It's the librarian noticing something that might be sensitive. And another thing to look at this, the way this regulation ties with policy is that policy says, if something's sensitive, the librarian should look at it. So what this does is it actually gives a procedure to the librarian to possibly say, maybe this is sensitive. Maybe I don't have to make the decision on my own. I'll bring it to my panel of my peers. And then it escalates. So I just did want to bring it out. It's not the board in the first step. The board's the very last step after it's gone through a bunch of review. That being said, I don't know if anyone has comments on what I said. Sure.
I have a clarifying question. What, if any, are the repercussions if material is subsequently identified as sensitive after the book is in the library? Does the librarian get in trouble?
There's no get in trouble. If a book's already in the library, policy 25, regulation 2535 comes in and how they remove it.
But in the instance where this regulation is applied, someone looks at material, decides it's not sensitive, and then after the fact, another individual flags it as sensitive. Is there a repercussion to the initial individual?
It's not in the regulation. It's not in the regulation. There could be a repercussion. Dr. Hart, you could address this as well. It would then be in the library, and then policy regulation 2535 would come in on the removal. So at that point, it's already in that, and there'd be no repercussions. Already comment on that.
If I understand your question, Michelle, it is, so let's establish that policy and regulation can outlive all of us that are sitting at this table. And our librarians may be here after we're all gone, who've developed the policy and regulation. I would say that it's one of the concerns of the librarians that under a current administration, they feel very confident that their decision-making is sound and that they would put material in the library free from any kind of disciplinary action. I'm speculating, I hope I speculate okay, but not every superintendent and principal has the same philosophy as current administration. So if it happens in the future, I don't think I would hold, if the librarian followed this process, I would not hold that, and there was a complaint later on, that librarian accountable, or say, what was your professional decision making? But I can't speak for a superintendent that's going to be here 10 years from now. I think that's a concern that's been voiced.
Yeah. Thank you for explaining that. I don't want anyone that is a staff member here to be concerned about doing their job because of a policy. And I do appreciate how you explained what I'll call it the chain of command is. My concern persists, so that people might be uncomfortable or afraid to make that call because we're not defining sensitive. It's very subjective, which I think is a good thing. It also creates the opportunity to be abused, and that concerns me.
So since it's not in the regulation, there is no penalties per se. So how would a future administration view that? Because it's not stated in that being regulation.
I'll give you my patent statement, which is with my superintendent certificate, they didn't give me a crystal ball. So I don't have a crystal ball to see into the future. I wish I did. As everyone here knows, public opinion and concern about material that's in our library can create a lot of administrative, parental, and community concern. You know, I think that various administrations have different ways of handling things. And if I could predict the future, I would like to say that the regulation would protect the librarians because it has a process, and I think that that's the goal. I would hate for them to feel uncomfortable if they do, but I can't predict the future. In the specific circumstances, I know that there are books in the library currently that our librarians that sit right now in their positions didn't pick, but they've created some concern. You know, I think that there's a level of discomfort, but I think that there's an understanding that the board has the established authority to develop policy, and that's being respected by our faculty and staff.
Do we add any statements in regulation to address Michelle's point, or would that even be feasible?
We could, I mean, if you want to put something in regulation that says no librarian will be disciplined for selections that he or she makes, or something along that line. But then that restricts administration, should there be a legitimate concern, you know, like I don't know where to.
I mean, I think I would defer to your recommendation on that. I just wanted to share the concern about how it could be interpreted so that we would just have this dialogue that we're having now. But I think you're in the best position to make the call on whether you can't outsource all of this decision making. At some point, common sense and education needs to prevail. So I would defer to you, Dr. Mark.
And I would just ask the board, can we have that prevail with the administration and the current faculty and staff? You know, I don't know what the future holds, but we will do our best to implement the policy and regulation as written. It's untested to Pam's point. It hasn't yet been tested, so I think that we're going to have to move forward. We're going to have to implement, and I see a couple of different outcomes. The Ed Tech Committee may see nothing, right? Because nothing is flagged to the administration or the Ed Tech Committee. The Ed Tech Committee may see everything, because the librarian may not wish to, you know, make that decision without, you know, running it through administration or the Ed Tech Committee. I don't know how it would be interpreted. I know we'll do our best I will do my best to ensure that the librarians have a comfort level with the decision making they have, because they're the professionals. They read the books, they're in tune with their professional organizations, and I'll give them whatever support they need to make the best possible decisions to make sure our kids have access to the things that Pam mentioned. That's my promise to all of you. And that.
I do want to mention we do have a policy on discipline as well.
Related to this regulation.
Not related to this one, but just in general, that already covers things like inappropriate interactions or content shared with students. You can go and read it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
We already have a policy on discipline.
Okay.
So we can see what that all is.
Thank you.
I think the librarian in his policy has a comfortable level of protection where they see something and maybe they're not sure and just say they don't want to go on a limb, make that decision. They have a nice step to go to a panel and it can go even further. So it's almost, they're almost, I don't want to say indemnified, But that's a nice level of protection for them, so they're not a sole source. And they can't say, I did this, and to be worried about it. If they have any concern, they have the next level to bring it to, which I think should give them a good level of comfort.
But if I could just build on that, my concern is when they think they have the right call, they're not concerned. They're not concerned now. They're professionals. They've studied. They're certified. They speak. They have professional judgment. They apply it. And then someone else says that that was sensitive. That's the concern that I have. I think I'm just going to say, I think we're trying to couch this like we're protecting them, but what we're actually doing is removing professional judgment from the position. And I have serious concern about that. We're cloaking it with a lot of nice words. We're overstepping as a board, in my opinion.
I have a few things to say. We all live within rules and regulations in our life. We have rules at work, we have policies at work, we drive on the road, we have to follow laws, and they're just around us, right? So when you know the law, you shouldn't break the law, right? So I think it's pretty simple. You have a policy, stick to the policy, and I feel like if you do it in good faith, you'll be okay. Like you get pulled over by a police officer, you're like, I apologize, officer, I went over the speed limit. They're like, all right, no problem, have a good day, you know? That can happen in this situation. It's not, we're all making it sound like very scary. It's not that complicated, it's not that scary. And I don't think we're overstepping. Ed Tech approves curriculum. In the curriculum are books. When we approve curriculum, we're also approving the books that go along with curriculum. I don't see how Ed Tech would be overstepping on that.
I have a question though, in ed tech, do you read the books? Do you suggest other books? I know that when we talk about in personnel that we are approving those personnel that you put forward.
I have made
We don't recommend it.
comments about some of the reading books in our tech meetings.
Okay. Any other?
Yeah, I mean, the purpose of the panel, I think, is to come into play if there's a question about whether or not the sensitive, sexually explicit content would be prioritized over the educational merit of the book. So it's not every book. It's not every book that might have a sensitive, word or whatever. It's when the question of, does this overtake the educational value of this particular book or story, and does this fully support our curriculum? That was my understanding in this whole thing, was that particular part. So it's not to be every single questionable curse word or whatever might be in a book. It's does this content outweigh the educational and scientific literary merit of the book? So I don't know if we can include that in the regulation so it's clear, that particular statement that matches our policy, but it's not for it. Again, like you said, common sense comes into play. There should be already standards that the school is held to, that this book, it has this explicit content in it. However, the educational value of the whole book is why we need this in our library. That's where I'm coming from. I think this has been taken way out of necessary conversation, but that was my understanding of this whole policy. And I have confidence in the statement that we made in the policy that it's the emphasis on providing the tools and professional development, and we have a role as a board according to the policy at the curation process. So that's why this is all being talked about. Our policy 2530 prior to this had guidelines. It had 6 different criteria for the selection process. So this isn't anything new that the board is doing. And to hear the words like overstepping and stuff like that, I think is unnecessary and is just creating unnecessary drama around it.
I don't think you need to accuse a fellow board member of being dramatic. I would appreciate if you wouldn't do that. If you could keep the comments not personal and objective, that would be preferred. Thank you. You just said that the statement that I made was dramatic, and I don't appreciate that. It's unnecessary.
All of the statements, I didn't mean you, I'm sorry. I was not targeting you at all, so I apologize if that happened, yeah.
So we are a policy-making body, and I think if we're just gonna copy and paste policies and not cater it to our community and our students, then we are doing a huge disservice. I've mentioned this many times, and I still stand by that.
I'll go back to what I said the last meeting. There are books in our library right now with sexually explicit content, and that I wouldn't read in mixed company, especially with women present. And that's just me as a personal feeling. I ran on traditional values. I'll still stand for that. I don't think we're looking to hang anybody. There's books in there right now that personally I don't think should be there. How they got there is of no consequence to me right now. It's just the idea of putting a policy in place that possibly will eliminate that happening in the future. If it does happen, there's a policy that can take the book out. So it's pretty cut and dry. So whether we're making a bigger deal out of it than it is, people are talking about censorship, talking about litigation. I think we're just hitting a common sense issue here. Let's just keep it simple.
And for those that may not have read Regulation 2535, the majority of it is about removing books that exist already in format of policy. So if there is a book that is in there, anyone that has a vested interest in the district, which is defined in the policy or regulation for which one has what a vested interest is, can actually put a complaint in for any book that exists. So really what we are talking about is future curation and how to handle future curation, because it's explicitly stated in the regulation policy how to handle books that are in there. So you can read that. It's very similar to actually what we had in the past, I believe, right? It's pretty close to the process. So it really is about curation and what to do, and the formation, really the difference is the formation of the panel that would recommend something to superintendent, which would then go to ed tech if it gets that far. That's really the significant change that's being proposed in the regulation. Any other additional comments before we move to a vote? Okay, so before we move to a vote, apparently it looks like there's going to be some people that vote yes, no on certain items. So when you make your vote, just make sure you're clear to Mr. Bone how you vote if you choose to not pass certain items, so you can record your vote accordingly.
I just have one question before we do that. Dr. Hart, with the regulation, should we add to item C about that the point at which that panel may come into play? So it's clear that this isn't about because nobody wants every single book to come through ed tech. That's not what this is for. But something where it says it's those rare, hopefully rare occasions where there is a book that comes into question where you're just like, oh, I really, I feel like there's good value for this book. However, there is this explicit section or there is a ton of violence and rape. So things like that, items like that. Do we put something like that in regulation or no?
But is
Because
it
then I
there
would,
already with the first sentence? If the library staff more identifies, so it's kind of,
but it seems unclear to people that that's the point at which that would come into play. And that it's not it's the rare books that would have, there would be a question of the educational value of the book over that content.
I believe I understand the goal, and the goal to give some guidance, maybe more guidance or more clarity. And while I think it's an ambitious and certainly understandable goal. I think in the spirit of it, and maybe not spirit, maybe both spirit and practice of it, I don't know if that's going to provide any more clarity to those that are making the selection. Because we might have to live it first before we know how it's being implemented. Concern exists, and I think the only way the concern will be alleviated is if we try it and see how it goes. And I understand the desire to make it clear, but it still puts some level of professional judgment on the librarian, which I think is warranted because she's specially trained for this kind of stuff. But I think to almost project what could be a potential issue for a parent or community member might be even more difficult. We've seen a variety of materials that have been questioned by parents. I'm not sure what will be that issue. So I understand it. I appreciate the goal. I don't know if it'll make it any more clear. So I would say let's leave it as is and see how it goes, and then come back with any recommendations that we have moving forward.
Thank you.
Any last comments before we move to vote? Yes, John?
Mrs. Cassidy.
We're going to vote no on policy 2535 and regulation 2535, and yes on the remainder.
Mrs. Fiore.
No on regulation 2535, yes to everything else.
Mr. Lopes.
Yes.
Mrs. Menzer.
No on regulation 2535, yes on everything else.
Mr. Pieros.
Yes.
Mrs. Rath.
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan.
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto.
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Our next item is unfinished business. We don't have anything listed. Anything you want to bring up on unfinished business? Okay. Our next item is new business from the board. There's two things I did want to bring up. One is the governance training that everyone has to take. I just recently registered. Jason mentioned that 3 of the 9 of us have registered, so if you haven't done so already, just reach out to Jason and register for your respective classes so that we get that over with. You can go to the NJSBA website and it lists the dates that are all available. Mine is a 2-hour live webinar. So
I just want to double check, Jason, you have my records from last October. I took, so that I could take the class for this year.
at the conference.
Yeah.
I can confirm on the school board's website and get back to you.
And the other thing that I noticed that when Michelle was talking about the finance, she mentioned the referendum. I know we have that in quick links in the section on the website. Jason, is that going to be moved to the main page? When you go to the main page, it brings up the referendum, or is it only through the quick links?
Well, anything can change depending on the preferences of the feedback groups.
Okay. Because right now it may be hard to find, because we were doing the vote, it was on the main page, and now you actually have to actively search in quick links, which people might not want to do. So it may make sense to just put it out there, because like Michelle mentioned, there's a lot of great information, and it'll keep the community up to date.
David, I can make that change eventually. Those 3 spotlight tiles, we rotate
Okay.
occasionally. Right now it's registration time, so that we have that on there. So we try to cycle them through. It just means I have to remove one of the tiles, which could be like Board of Ed meetings, like maybe that comes down and referendum becomes a permanent fixture, or once registration's over, we can put referendum up there. Just know that those 3 spotlight tiles on the main page are prime real estate. So something's going to have to come down to put something up. So if we want referendum to live there, it just means something else is not going to be posted.
Should be put somewhere else instead of spotlight, just like a static spot to care from, right?
I'll look at I'll
Yeah.
check out the website.
Yeah, because right now it's kind of hard to find. I know it's there because you showed us as some quick links, otherwise I don't think most people would know by going to the website that's actually there. So there's two items that I thought of during the meeting. I don't know if anyone else has any items you want to bring up. Okay. Our next session is our public session for any items on or off the agenda. Just curious from show of hands, how many people plan on speaking? Just one? Okay, so we're not going to have to worry about running out of time. So please come up, state your name and town you're from.
Hey everybody, my name is Merrill Vance. I am from Flemington, New Jersey, so town ranks. Okay. Good evening. Like I said, my name is Merrill Vance. I am the president of the Reddington Township Education Association, as well as a fifth grade teacher. This is my 4th year serving as president and my 23rd year teaching in district. First, I would like to thank the board for all that you do. I know firsthand how big of a commitment it is, and that is often a thankless job. My father was actually a board president for several years, so I have a great deal of knowledge of and respect and appreciation for the work that you do. However, as RTEA president, I do listen to or attend board meetings regularly. And as of late, I have become increasingly concerned about comments from some board members with regard to questioning of credentials and expertise of staff members. Therefore, I feel compelled to speak on behalf of the educators and staff that we represent. Our members are highly trained professionals who are deeply committed to the success, safety, and well-being of our students. They come to this work with expertise, experience, and a strong sense of responsibility, and they deserve to be trusted to do their jobs. Respect for employees' professional judgment is not optional. It is essential to a healthy and effective school system. The Code of Ethics for school board members under the School Ethics Act states, board members will support and protect school personnel in proper performance of their duties. When educators are supported, trusted, and allowed to work within their areas of expertise, students benefit. When that trust is undermined by micromanagement or overreach, it erodes morale, damages relationships, and distracts from our shared mission. We also want to respectfully remind the board of the importance of staying within its governance role. The board sets policy and direction, administration manages operations, educators and staff deliver instruction and support students. Again, per the Code of Ethics for school board members under the School Ethics Act, board members will confine board action to policymaking, planning, appraisal, and will help frame policies and plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them. Board members will carry out their responsibilities, not to administer the schools, but together with fellow board members to see that they are well known. As such, when each group stays in its lane and honors the roles of others, the system functions as intended. Our association is committed to collaboration and open communication, but collaboration requires mutual respect. We ask this board to demonstrate that respect by trusting employees' professional abilities, honoring established roles, and focusing on the governance responsibilities entrusted to you by the community. Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone online? Okay. With that, I will close out the public session. We're now going to move to executive session. I'm going to make a motion to adopt the following resolution. Resolve to adjourn to executive session in accordance with the Sunshine Law to discuss a legal matter and superintendent's evaluation mid-year update for approximately 30 minutes, at which time the board expects to return to public session where action shall not be taken. The matters discussed will be made public if and when circumstances requiring confidentiality no longer exist. However, it is not presently known when such circumstances will exist. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Okay.
Mrs. Cassidy,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Lopes,
Yes.
Mrs. Mentor,
Yes.
Mr. Pieros,
Yes.
Mrs. Rad,
Yes.
Mrs. Ryan,
Yes.
Mrs. Pinto,
Yes.
Mr. Rizzo.
Yes. Thank you everyone for coming tonight.
5 minutes, it's just stand up.
Yeah.
Hey, Pam, I'm gonna fess up.